Okay, I'm going to talk to you about TikTok Shop, and TikTok Shop is the most viral freaking thing in e-commerce right now, and you can do a ton of stuff with it. A lot of people are making a lot of money on it. I've made $78,000 myself since I started on it, and I've been on Calidata multiple times with my accounts, but they are accounts that are not branded with my name on it. But I will link some screenshots there in a minute. So I want to tell you about how to start off with TikTok Shop, but we're not going to spend a lot of time on that. I'm assuming that you already have some base level knowledge. A lot of creators have already done that with fancy graphics and editors, and I'm not going to do that. So you can go watch one of their things. That's what got me started. I'm going to take you through, after you're the beginner, after you're making money, after you know the platform, what's next. So my whole thing that I've been thinking about a lot recently is the fact of supply and demand. So if you look at some of the videos about TikTok Shop specifically, you will see that months ago they had about 1,000 people watching them on YouTube, and then some of them now have about 100,000 views on there. And let's just say somewhere around 10% of people actually do something about it. You might seem that might be high, but that is a lot of competition that we're starting to see. And we're also starting to see that if you go into Calidata, you can see what affiliate are on different products. And you're starting to see that you're having more and more competition on some of your top 10 best sellers. So those are just going to get more and more saturated. So that begs the question. I've personally seen, I think some of my best months were around $30,000 to $35,000. So I've seen a drop off of that, mostly because they have wiped away lots of the accounts. But instead of the the 5,000 minimum followers right now, it's only 1,000 minimum followers. And we can talk about that in another video, how to get there, because it's actually, of course, a lot better and a lot quicker to get there now. And there's some things that you can do to get you there in a couple more minutes or a couple days. So what happens next? That's my question, because $78,000 over the last, I think, 2 or 3 months is great, but it's not great enough for me personally and how I want to live my lifestyle, which is freedom and location independence and not basically having a job. So this is just like a $30,000 a month job. Depending on where you are in your life, you can probably get that and go out and get it, or go work for someone else and get that. And that's not what we want to do, because in order to get that was, working 4 to 5 hours a day, which I think is a lot of work for that amount of money. You may disagree, but I think it's a lot of work for that amount of money. So what comes next? And that's really what I want to talk about right now, is some ideas that I'm playing with. And what I'll do in other videos is show you the experiments that we're going to run to figure out what happens next. So if you want to differentiate yourself from the crowd, if you want to differentiate yourself from these 100,000 people, then that's what we're going to talk about right now. So let me erase this and we're going to get right to it. And let me just tell you, first of all, something that I tried and it did not work. So let me tell you the first experiment I ran and it did not work. So some of my, let's just say, some of the $78,000, probably about $55,000 of it was from going live. That was sitting there with just my hands and talking about a product. Specifically, what was it? It was the 15-day gut cleanse, which of you have seen all over the place. I was lucky enough to have, one of the first couple accounts that were going live on that. So I would get a lot of algorithm juice from that. I would have anywhere from 300 to 500 people watching the live. If you know anything about that, it's a lot of people watching a live. Most of the sellers are going to be getting 100 on a good day. You can still make good money on 100. So that is something that is not sustainable for me. I do not want to go live for multiple hours a day. So what was the first experiment that I ran? Great question. I live in LA. So what I did is I put ads out for actors to come and go live. Now, we tried this for 1 week and I had 3 other people do it. So we had 3 other people do it. And from that, we made 3 sales, and that cost me about $800. Now, what was I potentially doing wrong? Well, having them in an office was wrong. Paying them $40 an hour was wrong, and also not enough training. But what I learned from that is that to do this right is to outsource the lives correctly to people that are in your general vicinity. You need a lot of training, and you need some capital, and you need to keep your eye on it. So you need an office or some sort of remote way to do it. Now, if you're clever, which I think you are, if you're watching this channel, you've already found the problem. That problem is, if you're going to spend so much time doing this, you might as well just do it yourself and get that money yourself, because you're probably better at it. And the time it takes is going to be, and the production is going to be probably about as good as yours. So even with the 3 people, I would probably have gotten them to my level of production. And there's a lot of logistics. I was shipping the phones back and forth. So we scrapped that. That was a bad experiment. A live studio was a bad experiment. I believe it can work if you work with higher end brands. Now there's something called Orca here in LA, and Orca is a huge live selling studio. It has about 3 studios live selling. That's a studio. That's one studio, 2 studio, 3 studios. Anyway, they work with big brands, and the big brands pay big money. Then they contract with the creator, put the creator in the studio, and they sit there and they watch them go live, and they have fancy teleprompters and fancy things and stuff like that. Whole different thing to do. I'm sure that makes them, at least $100,000 a month. But once again, if you're clever again, you realize that this takes time and location away. So that takes the freedom away. Another business model we do not want to delve. So what's a good business model that we need to experiment with next in order to see if we can wrangle the power of TikTok Shop and marry the freedom and independence of the lifestyle that we want? Now, there is a couple things that people are already doing that seem to work. Let me show you. The number one thing, of course, and you probably already beat me to it, are just making the video. Now that's something that I stopped doing because the lives were taking so much more of my time. So just going back to straight up making videos. And we're gonna talk about this. I'm gonna do the SKOOL, the Alex Hormozi SKOOL software that he bought into. I'm gonna start a community there. It'll be like $9 a week or something like that. And I'm gonna run all these experiments and tell you about all the experiments that I'm running in there. So go ahead and sign up for that, because it's gonna make you way more than $9 a week, I promise. So we're gonna try the videos, but what we're also gonna try to do is we're gonna try to outsource them to the virtual assist. So I'm working on this right now to see if this has any legs on it. So that's one of the experiments that we'll be running in SKOOL. I think they actually spell it SKOOL. I think that's how they spell it. It's the software. I'm not an idiot. Well, I am, but not with that spelling. I mean, I know how to spell SKOOL. That's a way that I'm not an idiot. Okay, so all right, so there's that. That's one of the experiments that we're running. So another experiment that we're running is develop an agency. So an agency, which we have 4 clients with right now, we charge anyone $500 to $1,000 a month to make their videos and to help get their products into affiliate hands. Now there's a lot of software tools that we can use for this, and there is an additional cost that we have to incur, which is, as you can probably figure out, marketing and sales. Now, the problem and kind of benefit of this business model is there's going to be a lot of churn, which means a lot of new customers will come in, but a lot of them will come out and you will lose a lot. So you'll always have to continue to do marketing and outbound sales. And we've already spent $1,000 on a cold email campaign, but we have not ran that yet. So we do not have the results. The 4 clients that we have right now just came from F&F, friends and family. So that is something that we're working on. However, I do think there's a little bit of losing the focus. Now we want to put our focus, we only have, let's just say 8 good working hours a day, probably honestly 6 good working hours a day once you go to the gym, make yourself food, sleep, meditate, whatever the hell you do. So probably only 6 good working hours a day. And you're dealing with people. Every time you deal with people, you lose, and you're dealing with business owners. So you lose time. And once again, we don't want to lose time. However, this does check the mark of, you probably can't see this, but it does check the mark of that freedom, at least geographically, okay? So it's close, it's getting closer. So we're running the experiment. I'll do the experiment in that SKOOL platform. So once again, go ahead and sign up for that, and we'll see how that goes. And we'll see if it can bear fruit. However, another thing that I did not put as one of our main criteria but we want to actually build an asset. So it comes down to simple assets and liabilities, which if you ever read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, or watched any kind of financial YouTuber or whatever, you will realize there's assets and liabilities. Liabilities basically take money out of your pocket. Assets are things that build money and build wealth and revenue for you. However, agencies, they can be sold, but they're mainly a service business and you don't really have much of an underlying asset. So if you want to build up an agency, it's a great cash flowing business, but it's going to be a little harder to sell. Doesn't mean you can't do it. A lot of very successful, smart people have. It just doesn't mean you can't, but it just means that it's a little harder. Now, the third thing, which I'm most excited about right now, but it's still the biggest question mark, because we don't have a lot of information yet to back this up or to figure out if this is going to work, and that is actual product. So launching our own product. But you're going to be like, Steven, why would you do that? Because let's just say you're going to make $5 to $10 on your own products, but some of these affiliates you can make. I saw a coffee giving out an $18 commission today. So God, my handwriting is terrible. Hopefully the editor will just make all this go away and be something pretty and shiny for you to watch. But the products is interesting. The products are interesting. And let me tell you why. Because they give you the freedom and they also give you the time, because really it's just a lot of time on the front end. And if you can get these products trending and into affiliates' hands, then they're gonna do most of the work for you, like I've been doing most of the work for this brand. You know, I mean, to make $50,000 of my profit off it means I must have sold $250,000 of their stuff. So they really got the sweet end of the deal. I did not. $250,000 that I made them at what companies like this sell for is, let's just say, a multiple of EBITDA, 5x multiple of EBITDA. Just the 250 I did for them, let's just times that by 5 and say I increased their company value by, let's just say, $1 million. Pretty good. What did I get from that? $55,000 fucking dollars. Not great. Cool if you're a teenager and you are using that money and you get to invest it and it gets to compound, and then by the time you're my age you'll have maybe $1 million. So a teenager for $55,000 is amazing. Early 20s, amazing, because you get to use that money and compound it and invest it. However, your boy's an old man and we don't have time for that anymore with the trajectory of what we're looking for. So we have to build this asset and build it up quickly, because I don't have time on my side to invest the money like I would if I were younger. However, there are things that we can still do if time is not on our side. So the product is going to be one of them. On top of the time and freedom, it does also give us a third thing that I had not really put in at the top of the video, which is assets, which is something to sell. I've had multiple businesses before in my life. They've all been service businesses. I've never had anything to sell. I flipped houses. I flipped almost 100 houses, about 96, 97. And out of all the houses I flipped, those were just one product. I can't actually flip the house flipping business, which was a stupid ass mistake on my part. Had I done that, I would have been in a nicer Airbnb right now, but we're not. So that's a whole nother story for a whole nother video. Anyway, so we're gonna run the experiment on the products. But let me just drop some sauce, and we're gonna do that inside SKOOL. But let me just drop some sauce right here to borrow some words from the Gen Z. A short, quick little teaser on the next video about the process and the experiment of finding a product. And let me just jump down real quick and tell you why actually experimentation is the real important part of this video, is because this is something that I've learned just kind of recently, is that experimenting in business really is the key to any successful venture. Because not only are you going to find things as you go on and the path becomes more clear and you get to pivot and jump and learn and iterate. So just natural that you're going to be making better decisions once you do more things. Not only that, is that when you do experiment, you also find more of what's authentic to you within this process, which I really like. And on top of that, experimenting is something that gets it out of your head, so you're not just going over and over and over in your head, ruminating on something and losing all that time and money and effort in your opportunity cost. So there's been things that I've had on my to-do list for years that I've never done because in my head they were these perfect little ideas, and once I got them out on into the world thriving, they didn't work out, and then I was like, well, fuck it, I'm not going to do that anymore because it was perfect in my head. Now it's in real life, it's not great anymore, I'm not going to do it. But had I had a little bit more of the growth mindset, then I would have been more willing to start things faster. I would have iterated faster, I would have learned faster, and then I would have gotten them out of my head and had more time, which is really the main thing. Sorry, a little bit of a tangent. Okay, the products. Now, how would you find products to sell yourself? Well, Calidata, that's an easy one to start off with. You also can use the TikTok tool. They have a opportunity tool, which is just absolutely insane. If you have not checked it out, check it out. And you can also use Shop Plus. Isn't this some shit that I'm not even using a fucking laptop? Like, I'm literally just like an old school old man using a fucking drawing board. Anyway, not been one of my best days today. Not giving very good positive energy, but we are giving a lot of information, so that's a helpful thing. All right, so what else that we're doing is running experiments. So we're putting things into our shop. I'm putting things in my shop right now from Walmart and Amazon, and I'm seeing what's selling organically just from my shop, and then from there I'm killing it and looking into sourcing those products. Now, most of those products is just boring fucking things I don't want to sell, like little stress balls and stuff. I will do it if I have to, because we'll do whatever we have to do, but I think that there is no brand, and I don't like this because any other Chinese factory or foreign seller that actually manufactures these goods can come and just get their stuff, ship it over here to a 3PL and just outbid us on price, which is what you've seen happen in Amazon FBA a lot, and you don't want that to happen. Right now there's a little bit of a gap and that's not happening as much, but it will happen as this gets more and more intense. So where does that leave us? That leaves us with a branded product. Now, a branded product is, I think, going to be the highest and best return for putting your time and energy into something, and your time and energy not sapping out of it, right? So time and energy into a product like a screwdriver, weird thing, but stay with me, is not going to be the best time and energy to brand a screwdriver, because it doesn't really matter what kind of screwdriver it is. Anyone can just sell the same thing. It does the same thing. It doesn't really matter, even though it is technically the motion of the ocean. We all know that, but that's neither here nor there in this example. The fact is, you can't really brand a screwdriver super well. So what can you do? And this leads really beautifully to things that are actually already selling very hot on Calidata and TikTok, and that's health and beauty and wellness. Now, that is health and wellness and beauty. Now, beauty is centered around women, and I'm not a woman. I think some would argue that I'm a little bit more of an feminine man, but we'll leave that to another video too. And it's true, I am. I like to talk about my feelings. No shame in that. But that's going to be X, because I can't make content organically myself. And if push comes to shove, I want to be able to make organic content myself. And I want to remember that we're going to be in this, we're going to be investing a significant amount of time. So you really want to do something that you actually like and kind of give a shit about. Now, instead of liking and you're passionate, you don't have to be passionate about whatever product you're creating, but I do think you have to find a certain interest in it, and you have to be kind of good at it. So in my mind, since I've sold so much, I'm kind of good at whatever the hell a supplement fulfilled the needs of. So for me, I think just because I've sold so much, I feel pretty confident in my ability to sell supplements. And what I would encourage you to do is find something that you are interested in and kind of good at. But if you can't find anything that you're interested in, just find something you're kind of good at. Like, what are you kind of good at? Sport, whatever, and then kind of go from there, and then add that in to something that you can brand at the same time. Once again, we're going to talk about all this in the little school group that I'm going to do. Once again, it's $9 a week. I'm sorry if you can't afford it. I totally feel that. And I just kind of want to create a spot for me to geek out on this stuff and talk about, and for you to geek out about this stuff and talk about it. So many businesses I've tried, I've never connected with people from that business because I didn't like the businesses I was in. But I really like this. I think this is super exciting and super huge potential. And I like talking to all the people that are doing this too. I actually find it fascinating, and there's so much more to delve into. Okay, so we're gonna do supplements. So supplements are tricky because obviously you get violations. However, we'll just have to work with it. TikTok is the easiest place to sell supplements besides from Shopify. But that is the experiment that we're gonna run. Today, I called several white label suppliers. You can't see that, can you? White label suppliers, and I'm waiting for them to call back on Monday. They will have a minimum order, so you will need some capital for this. However, I think there's ways that you could do it without capital. You could do it something like Supplify or Suppliful, Suppliful, and Suppliful has white labeled supplements and products that you can do, and then you can test that out. You know, that can be a good testing ground for you. And then we might actually do that too. We might run that in the experiment in the SKOOL community. We might test out some things on Suppliful, and then whatever's working, we will scale up, find white label suppliers, and if it's not working, we'll kill that off. And then we're gonna get into the whole, which is my favorite part, is the marketing of the product once we get a product going on. So what do you think about that? I think this is the logical next step. I think for anyone that doesn't want to be eaten up by competition, that's a logical next step. Now, another way to differentiate, of course, will just be finding baby new products that are popping off and has an upward trajectory, and then you can go in there and start making videos on that, and then hopefully you can be some of the people that are on the ground floor of that, and then once it gets popular in the algorithm, your videos will spike. Hopefully that's a thing that will happen as well, and you can differentiate yourself that way. But I do think it's starting to be time to think about differentiating yourself within TikTok if you want this to last, which we definitely do. Join the SKOOL community. I think it's gonna be fun as hell. Hopefully I don't just get in there and get bored in like a week. But if we do, I'll find another geek that likes to talk about TikTok Shop and bring him in to manage it. And then I'll just pitch in and stuff like that. But jump in there, it'll be fun. And we'll be running all these experiments, and we'll be running all these experiments out in the open because we're gonna build out in the open, baby.